On some of my latest videos, I've gotten several comments asking how I've made some of my models such as Gatekeeper, Max Force, and King Ka. And now, while they're all roller coasters, they share one thing in common, and that's using no limits to help create them. I've been meaning to create this video for a while now, so today I'm finally going to be taking you through each step of this process so that you can create your very own LEGO No Limits recreations. But before we jump into the builds, let's talk about what these no limits conversions entail. It all started in late July when a thought occurred to me. What if I can use a no limits model as a guide to build my recreations? In theory, the models would be 100 times more accurate and more pleasing to the eye. First things first, planning. Step 1. Gather your resources. You'll need a few tools to help aid in this process. Namely Studio, Stud.io, whatever you want to call it, but this is used for actually building the coaster. Next, you'll need PartDesigner. This is an add-on program paired with Studio that can help import custom bricks and 3D models into the main program. You'll also need No Limits 2 and the XML file found in the description. Step 2. Figure out which coaster you're actually going to build. I have several already lined up and ready to go, but when I first tested this idea, I chose Gatekeeper as a prototype. I did this for a few reasons. 1, it is a fairly iconic coaster, and 2, it had an in-game recreation that was released with no limits. Now obviously the reason you're here is to learn how to build a coaster that I haven't built, so more than likely you're not going to be wanting to build Gatekeeper. So what you're going to do is find a community recreation of the coaster you're going to want to build and download it. Now when doing this, you have to make sure that the model you've downloaded is not password protected, otherwise you won't be able to export the data. Once you have the coaster loaded into No Limits, you're going to make sure that you have the correct coaster selected, just to make sure we aren't exporting something else in the file. Then you're going to click on the Advanced tab in the right corner, and then under that, select Light Pattern Creator. This is going to create a spine of the track that you will later use as a guide. In this window, make sure Generate Object is toggled on. Next, rename your file, changing the file prefix name. Once you've done that, hit Generate and choose where you want to save your file. For this video, I'm going to save it on my desktop, and once you're done with that, you can close No Limits. Wherever you have saved the generated object, you're going to be greeted by a bunch of files with your chosen name. You're only going to need one of those files. Look for a file that ends with the .lwl extension. Once you've found it, you can delete the other files, leaving just the one. Next, just Google .lwo to .obj. I like to use anyconvert.com. I'll leave a link down in the description. Go ahead and convert your file. It shouldn't take too long. Once you have your .obj file, open up PartDesigner. On the opening window, select the Import option and scroll over to 3D Object. This will allow you to import 3D models. Once the file is loaded in, don't mess around with the dimension sizes, but instead set the scale to 1500%. When importing, you might have to fix the orientation, and you can do that by using the arrow keys. Select the object, then export the model to Studio. Now this is the part that tripped me up the first time I attempted to export a model. I'm not sure how it is for other computers, but at least for me, the progress bar for exporting won't advance. This does not mean it's not exporting. If your computer does this, exit out of PartDesigner and check the custom parts section in Studio. Odds are the model will have exported successfully. Now here comes the fun part. This is also the part that takes the most time, so it's good to have patience when building. The first thing you're going to want to do is place the guide in your file and set the color to one that contrasts well to the color of the track. As for the pieces I used to build these models, in the XML file you downloaded is a custom palette of every brick you will need. You can add more bricks if you like, but this serves as a starting point for new builders. To import the XML file, just head to Palette dropdown, select Configuration, use the dropdown and hit Import a Wanted List XML without quantity. Now, even though you might be a little nervous to start this, that's completely okay. Basically, what I'm going to be taking you through now the rest of the way is just some tips and tricks on how to create these things, these models. So the first thing I like to start out with is the station, and that just basically gives me a starting point to start the model. So the way I like to build these models is first going up to, let's say I have to go to edit preferences, and a lot of people don't actually know that this is a thing, but in preferences you can go to appearance, set your render quality all the way down to 0. That'll re-render your parts, and it just make everything a lot more like serviceable, and make sure that your computer can actually run these files. Because with these piece counts, your computer can't handle it quite as much, and so it's just good to have, it helps with performance basically. So you can see that basically converts all these parts to low poly models, so it just helps your computer run faster, and that's a really big part about building these, because once you start like getting into like supports and things, you're going to want to have low poly instead of highest quality as possible, because it will slow down your computer quite a lot. So what I've done here is I've gone to the custom palette, and I have this 1x2 with the ball joint piece leading the way. So I like to lead with the ball joint piece and not the opposing trail. So I'm going to go and select my guide here first, and I'm going to go to the fine grid, so I can use my if I select it there, I can use my arrow, my ASDW keys to get the track right in the center of that ball joint piece, and that's the old way I used to do it. So now the new way I do it is this grill piece, and this helps with creating POVs. You want just enough, just a little bit of red to seep through at the top. So then you're going to take this piece, which has the connector and the ball joint piece. This is what's going to make the most of our track. So I'm going to select both pieces there, and I'm just going to make a submodel and name it track. So I definitely experiment with like straights and all that. And the number one thing you don't want to do is cut corners here. So you don't necessarily want to cut a corner like this, otherwise your POV is going to cut through that the piece there. But that's for another video, and so this is really not a great like model to show it on, but because it's so tiny and it has such a small lift. But on some of my models like that, like I wouldn't ever build a POV, because like look at that, that's a terrible angle. This is probably like the only time ever that I'd cut corner possibly and make it look a little less steep. But we're gonna basically, what you want to do is just, I'm gonna actually move this down so I can teach you banking. Banking is probably one of the harder things to do, especially as you're starting out, because there are a few bugs that I had to work through. Now I'm gonna get this kind of close so I can show you guys how this works. It's not a perfect way to do these things, but Studio doesn't allow you to rotate things in the middle of a section, so you have to rotate in 3 different directions to get things right. Now this is not how I start a model. I don't just like go into the middle of a thing. I'm going to delete these so I can get it kind of in the right spot, and I'm going to put this so I can hinge it actually. So yeah, the first thing I like to do is kind of use the left to right movement instead of up and down or twisting. Left to right is the basis, and then you're going to want to do up and down. Up and down, left, right, then up and down. And then you can get it in closer there. And then finally, once you have it close, you're going to want to get your banking right. And you're going to notice that it's not perfect, but that's when you go back to your left and right and up and down to get it somewhat close. Now, obviously, I started so halfway in between this model, so it's not going to look good whatsoever. So just keep that in mind in this tutorial. See, that looks better. That's what it should look like on your model. So if I take this and I hit that there, I should be able to do this a lot better. And for this one, I'm going to actually do the up and down first. It really depends on like which way you want to do it. Just takes a second for you to get good at a method such as this, because it just takes time, practice. And see, like that's a pretty good turn. I might want to like mess with this angle just a little bit more because we have a higher bank, and since I made that a higher bank, I have to go back and fix that. It's a tedious process, I will admit, but the end product obviously is really satisfying, because I'm going to delete this model and I'm going to go to Kingdom Ka and show you what that looks like. This model basically has everything you need to learn about Kingdom Ka, or about supports. So here is Kingdom Ka in all of its glory. You can see how the rotational elements of like the this heartline roll, see how it heartlines, and there are some spots like right here where it's like it's not smooth in theory, but it follows the track. And so when I first started making these, I did top down supports, meaning that I would go from the top down. I would connect the support to the track first instead of connecting to the ground. That led to some undesirable effects such as uneven ground and some floor shadows, where I would basically select the entire model and then make sure that it was on the ground, but since some supports weren't on the ground or below it, they were set as the origin for that, so some supports would be higher or off the ground ever so slightly and would create a shadow on a render. So I don't suggest doing top down. Instead, what I would do is what I did for the majority of these supports on this camelback here, which is bottom up. Bottom up is a combination of these two pieces right here. That's the same for pretty much every single support except for the tower supports, because they're special and just a lot thicker. So what you're going to do is take these two pieces, which is the 1x1 clip and this bar holder with handle, and you're going to find basically what tube fits, and you're going to place that, you're going to slide it, and you're going to fine tune using the ASDW keys and place it right in the center. Now, one thing you don't want to do is have something like this where you put it up too high and you can see just a little bit of that blue. You want to make sure that you don't do that and that it's just a little under. So while it does take a lot of practice, supports can be achieved and look really good. I suggest making everything submodels, and yes, I do collide sometimes with a lot of these supports, especially on the tower, because there's just no way to make that possible in real life, and I'm not going to be really building these in real life at all. About the only one I could ever build is probably Rock and Roller Coaster, and I did make those supports actually viable and buildable. So you can cheat. I do. It's just a little bit. Hopefully that doesn't detract from your the wow factor when looking at these. I do try and make them as realistic as possible, but for parts usage and stuff, I don't like try and go overboard with. I try to be very efficient with my pieces. So like on my Banshee model, this would be like at least 3 bars connected by the bar holder pieces. But instead, I use these flexible pieces that are flexible in real life but are rigid in the program. So they stand upright and they are seamless and are just one piece. So it looks a lot better than what I was using before. And some argue that it doesn't look as Lego-y per se, but I don't think it makes that big of a difference in my mind. So a lot of, like I said before, building these layouts and building these supports does take a lot of time. And like I said, use what you have in this palette to help you. If you have any questions, you can ask me in comments or reach out to me by email. Either way, I will probably answer you within a week or so. I'm not good at responding to emails, but comments I'll definitely get to quicker. I can help you. If you reach out by email and you have a really specific issue, I can definitely walk you through what's going on. But if this channel blows up or something like that and I have 1 million subscribers, I'm probably not going to be able to get to every single one of you. But right now, since I'm under 1,000, I'm probably going to be able to help a lot more than if I were actually super popular, you know what I'm saying? So that pretty much wraps it up. Like I said, there's a lot of ins and outs to this program and just this technique. And the best thing you can do is just get familiar with what's going on. So that about sums it up. I really hope you enjoyed. Like I said, reach out to me if you have any question. But that's it. Have a good life.